Still perfect. We're back here again on another gorgeous day. There's been so many things happening. I'll give you a quick checkup. First off, there's an awful lot of sheetrock. That whole ceiling is done. Okay, I just got 2 boards in this ceiling. I think you saw Shay's room. It's mostly done. Got wall paneling here. Stairway done. Well, that first 4 feet or whatever. And this room, this ceiling is in. The walls are in. This ceiling is in. These walls are in. And yeah. Really couldn't have done it without the help of Danny and Shay and Mom and Dad. And it's time to close windows. But I've got an awful lot of water lines in some of these walls. And I don't want to cover them until I test them. And that's what we're working on right here this morning. I guess you'd call this the hot water manifold. This one that I've scabbed the port onto. By the way, that's where our testing is going to start. That's the cold water inlet. This will allow me to pressure test the entire cold water side. These 2 here are the hot out of the hot water heater. This one here does everything upstairs. This one here does everything downstairs. So 2 upstairs bathrooms, downstairs bathroom, kitchen. And I believe the laundry room is tied off of this. I tried to separate as many bathrooms from all the rest of the fixtures as I could. But I'm going to add air down there with a nice gauge and valve thing I inherited from my father-in-law. And it's done all his houses, so it should do mine. Gonna pressurize it up, then we can watch it. I have a spray bottle with some soap in there. I'm really hoping I don't need to. I'd like to see 50 psi on that gauge, walk away an hour, see 50 psi on that gauge. That'd be delightful. But that's what I'm about to do. Assume it's not a good sign when you can see it dropping. All right, I gotta go check the valves downstairs. I thought this whole line was turned off, meaning I would only check it from here to the cold side manifold. So I gotta go make sure I'm not just filling the other colds. Yeah, otherwise there's a reasonably large leak. Gosh dang, all that does is go straight down into the basement. Well, okay, so obviously no panics yet. I get to go take this whole thing apart and then put it back together again, and we'll try it. So far, it's not me. It's kind of important it's not me. I very much want it to not be me. All right, can't blame Dale on that one. All these joints were finger tight. So, well, this one and this one. I never checked it. So that's not his fault. I now have it at 40 psi. It is not dropping. Happy boy. Happy sweaty boy. Those 2 aren't necessarily related. Okay, it's been about 15 minutes. Hasn't moved a muscle. I'm going to go open the valve. That'll pressurize the main trunk line, but it won't pressurize any of the other zones. And then I'll go open the zones one at a time. Valve shut. Okay, I don't have a valve here. I have a valve on the other side. Valve shut. Valve shut. Valve shut. This is the downstairs baths. Cold water is the 2 upstairs baths and the toilets. Cold water. This is the line that's currently pressurized, at least to right here. lowest bit of copper in the house, drain valve. This one feeds cold water to the kitchen and the laundry room. I'm going to open this valve right here. Okay. Now, all of this is pressurized, including the crossover. We're going to have a leak. It's probably going to be right there. Back up to 40 psi. It's just an arbitrary number I picked. I don't know if I should go higher or not. Since the house will probably have closer to 60, I think it'll be fine. Air leaks easier than water, right? And we will give it another 15 minutes. See if we see any change on the valve. Uh-oh. 15 minutes later, we've dropped. So now we got to see if we can find where the leaks are. Well, there it is. We're going to have a leak. It's probably going to be right there. Actually appears to be coming out of here. I find that a bit weird. I am going to attempt to loosen these two clamps, tighten that fitting, and then retighten these clamps, and then hope that this doesn't leak after I do that. With this water, something like this will seal itself. But you can't test the rest of the house for leaks unless you can get it to stop leaking first. Put it back together with liquid Teflon and 2 new hose clamps because I sort of stretched the old ones. And we appear to have been successful. So, it's now time to open a zone. What do we think? Start with the kitchen? I think we start with the kitchen. Perfect. The kitchen laundry room zone has passed. All right. Let's turn on the downstairs bath cold water supply. That zone held. Let's go turn on another one. Check and make sure that's still turned off. It is. Now we're at this juncture. Let's turn on the master. Boom. This is master and filtered drinkable water to some future hose bib out there. I believe that one has dropped slightly. I better get my bottle of soap out. Dang it. I just spritzed every joint. No bubbles anywhere. Maybe I misread it. I brought it back up to 40 psi and we'll let it sit again. Well, I found it. And it's one of my joints. So I gotta take that mess apart. I don't know how far back I'm gonna have to go. There we go. Holding steady at 51 psi. So I had that joint that I showed you bubbling, and then a second joint that had simply never been soldered. But now the entire cold water side is holding. I'm going to give it a few hours here, and then if it works, I'll desolder this coupling and I'll move to each of the hot water legs. And then after that, we can seal walls. The suggestion of the father-in-law, I bumped up the pressure to 80 psi, at which point I found this one here was still just barely bubbling. It was not bubbling at 40 or 50, but it bubbled at 80. So I found my leak there. I have now disassembled all of this. And instead of Teflon tape, I use Teflon goo. So right now there's no pressure in any of these. I'm going to let them back you up. I'm going to let them dry. It said 4 hours to 125 psi, full cure in 24. There's no rush on any of these, so I'm going to let it sit until I need to.
5 hours later.
I've lost 2 psi in 4 hours. It's gone from 70 to 68. I cannot. I have soaped the lines. I'm contemplating pressurizing it with water and looking for a puddle. Three more hours. It hasn't dropped a lick. All I did was just very carefully snug up those hose clamps. They're already so tight, but I just snugged them a whisper. Could also be that it's at 60 instead of at 70 or 80 like it was previously. You know, air is harder to keep in than water. Still gorgeous. That's where I'm going to leave it. I'll see if it's still at 60 tomorrow. Okay, I'll transfer that over and pressurize one of the 2 hot legs so I can finally close up these walls. If it's dropped, I don't know, I'll shave my head and join a monastery or something. Still, it's only been 2 things that I did so far. Alright, I screwed together those fittings, right? But, I mean, come on, you really can't screw that up. And there was a crap ton of Teflon tape and then a crap ton of liquid Teflon. I guess pipe dope is next, huh? Anyways, really can't screw that up, so it's not my fault. I had 1 dry joint and 1 I'd simply forgotten to solder. But there's something like that on a hot leg. I need to know it. Please be at 60 tomorrow. Please. This flows into a series of 1/4 and 1/8 inch orifice. Mostly 1/8 inch orifice, unless they've broken off, and then they're 1/4. There's water at the base of each tree. I'm running the filter on it just because I'm curious. This is a brand new filter I just put in, and I'll let it go for a month or so, and then I'll just see how much sediment collects out of here. I've run the well probably wide open out of a hose, maybe 6 hours, and then I've been using it to sprinkle for a few days. Hopefully any junk down there has been sucked up and blown out. We'll see what happens. But simultaneously, I'm also running not 1, but 2 whirligig sprinklers. And I never could have done that. I would not have had the water pressure previously to do that. So that's fantastic. If you're curious about the water pressure, when the pump is fully charged, it's about 65 psi at this hydrant. And then I have not turned on that hydrant over there yet. In order for me to turn on that, I've got to completely redo the orchard system, and I don't have time. So at the moment, I'm running hoses down past the old well and on out. It is so nice having water, more water than a fella feels like he could use. By the end of it, the old well, I could only run a hose for about 10 minutes. In fact, the orchard sprinkler timer was set to 12 minutes once a day. And even then, I would occasionally find that pump just running against cavitation, and I'd have to shut the whole thing off and let it rebuild for a day, and then I could turn it back on again. So I don't know if it's coincidence or it's just because it's, you know, hotter and drier now, but if you remember years back when I was mixing concrete, this well would never have handled it today. Yeah, I could never have sprayed that much water today. But I am absolutely thrilled. It worked perfect. Does that mean I have water at the house now? No. Let's try it one more time. Maybe this time don't call them speakers, call them sprinklers.